So hello from Green-Mopeds in London. So today we're trying out the entry-level bike from Lexmoto stroke Yadea. Lexmoto call it their E-Lex, E-Lex. Okay, but this is a Yadea bike. They call it S-Line. It is, by the looks of it now, the entry-level bike from from Lexmoto. They did have another bike called the Impulse, which looks like has now been discontinued. That wasn't from Yadea anyway. That was from Seneco, and we have reviewed it. Looks like that one's being dropped, and this one is their sort of base bike. But anyway, we'll talk through it as we go. We're also sort of combining this with a range test. We have to get, well, we're going over the other side of London anyway, and I thought I would test its range at the same time. So Yadea, we talked about before, massive manufacturer out of China. Lots of different sorts of products, push bikes, kick scooters, electric bikes, etc., etc. This isn't anything special in their range. They have, a good choice, probably 15 odd models. So often you get to a stage, a little bit like NIU to be honest, that you have bikes that are so similar, they just sort of overlap. So you might choose one over the other because you like its looks or something like that. But this is sort of like a no-frills bike. So I guess we can start off with the price. It's £1,700. Okay. What's remarkable about that is that it actually has two batteries. Two batteries not made by a company that you would necessarily know. They're made by a company called Power Amp, which is, I think, Chinese by all accounts as well. But even so, two 60-volt, 24 amp hour batteries, which isn't the bottom end of the market in terms of what it could be. I mean, there are other bikes that are lower than that are just 20 amp hours. So you've got two of those. The quoted range, which is partly the reason that I'm taking on a sort of longish journey, is 55, which basically means that each battery has to do, say, 25 each. Okay, so on paper, or in theory, that doesn't sound like it's going to be too difficult. I mean, maybe they'll get to 20. If they get to 25, you're pretty much up there in the 50-mile range, which would, against its competitors for this price, there aren't too many bikes around this price other than another Yadea, the G5, which we've looked at before. Currently there is the NIU MQI Plus Sport. That's currently £60 more, because it's on a special offer. It's usually 2,156, but currently it is only 1,760, which does make it quite a good buy at the moment. Not sure how long that promotion is going. I'm talking first week of September 2021. Okay, just so you know. It could end any time, and then it will go back to over 2,100. So the only real other bike around this price would be a UQI Pro from NIU, which is cheaper, makes it £1,500, let's say, but its range is like 20. So if this does 50 miles, this will be the cheapest bike you can get with that range. Okay, so we often try and find a reason, compelling things about all the bikes that we offer. and that would be that reason, you know, the cheapest 50-mile range bike that you can get. For example, a comparison, although obviously nothing like the style, the EV2000R from Artisan, which will do 50 miles because we've tested one battery and it got 25 miles out of it, that with 2 batteries was over £3,000. So, you know, this might turn out to be the entry-level bike if you want a bit of range but you don't want anything else. By that I mean no app. It does have an alarm. Interestingly, I really don't understand why they've done this. This has a drum brake at the back. I haven't seen a drum brake on an electric bike before, and I'm not sure why they would do it. In some respects it seems more complicated because they've got to get the drum brake and the motor into the wheel rather than just put a disc on it. But anyway, that's what they've chosen. So a disc brake at the front, drum brake at the back. As I said, no app, but as we've also said, is that a reason not to buy this bike or any bike? Because you can add GPS tracking from various people. As you can see from the display, pretty basic. Speed, an odometer. The left-hand bar here is going to tell me as I'm going through the battery. As I said, under the seat there is a second battery, but at the moment we're just riding it on one battery to see how far we're going to get on one battery, and then, you know, when we conk out we'll swap over. But the display is as basic as you can get. But, you know, obviously there's no estimation of range. This bike started on 0 miles when we set off, and we've now done 2 miles. So I'll be able to tell you what each of those 5 segments means, I guess, as we go through it. But yeah, pretty basic. I guess that that battery light is going to come on when I start going down to the bottom of the range. So that'll be a good test. But yeah, I'm slightly surprised by a choice of a drum brake. I'm not sure why you would. But anyway, it still stops the bike. Okay, so you do get, as you can see down there, a little cubby hole for your phone. You do get a USB port. You get, so interestingly, the way they've sorted out the battery configuration is that they're relatively small. They are in fact about the same size as a NIU UQI Pro battery, but there's 2 of them. So, and they go fairly deep into the bike actually. So there's a little tray that sits on top, and you'll see this on the static review. There's a little tray that goes on top, but it's not space for a helmet or anything like that. It's basically to carry the charger. So yeah, I don't see a rack for this bike on the Lexmoto website, so I'm not sure there is one. So it would be rucksack. The charger is relatively low spec. It's 4 amp. So again, not breaking any records there, but an NIU M charger is only 5. So again, it's not particularly unusual. And charging time is going to be, and there is a charging port down here. Charging time is going to be a good 6 to 7 hours, which is not too surprising, bearing in mind it's 4 amp. You can see the little indicators down there to sort of basically remind you that they're on, because there is, I mean, I'm not sure if you can even see in the daylight that the indicator light is flashing on the dashboard here. It was flashing. So this is, you know, entry-level stuff, but I can't say it's particularly that much cheaper in terms of plastic and stuff like that. Maybe this, I mean, the mirrors are standard. You know, the plastic is maybe a little bit cheaper in quality. But, you know, Yadea have been doing this for quite a while, so it's not like they don't know what they're doing. And as you can see, it does have two modes, mode 1 and mode 2, and as we said before, mode 1 is pretty much pointless. If I can just put it into mode 1 while we're going up here. So now we're in mode 1. This is a 1200 watt bike, base power, okay, and 1.5 kilowatts max, which is 2 horsepower max. But that is basically the same as an NIU MQI Plus Sport and a UQI Pro and a UQI GT Pro. So again, it's not like they're scrimping on some of the main sort of elements. You know, you might argue that the fact that it doesn't have a Panasonic battery or a battery that you haven't heard of might count for something. I mean, it's certainly getting a non-Panasonic battery will certainly save a few pounds from Yadea's perspective, and therefore your perspective. But yeah, mode 1 will get you to 16 miles an hour, just like they all do, and mode 2 will get you to the rest. So eventually you'll probably stop using mode 1 altogether, unless you're maybe crawling along like this, where you either can't filter or you don't want to. Okay, so 2 horsepower. These bikes around this sort of level are, all of them are not going to set any records, or any of them are not going to set any records. They are going to get you to the speed in the time that they do it. They will, you know, get you up hills, although they might not maintain their speed doing it. They're not going to be accelerating off the line like people might want with when they're sort of comparing it to a petrol bike or whatever. They're just meant to get you there. Okay. So there isn't a lot to say about this bike other than what I've just said, but also this is still on the grant. So £1,700 is still a 3-year warranty. So you haven't missed out on any of that. You've got a 3-year warranty on the battery and a 2-year warranty on the bike itself. So you haven't missed out on any of that. You are missing out on a choice of colours, because it's any colour as long as it's black. That's the only colour you get. As you can see, I am 185, and this doesn't have a flat seat. It does have a ridge, but I can sit far enough back that even though the handlebars don't really have a kink in them, and I have got a flat seat, haven't got a flat seat, there's not particularly an issue with my legs or knees hitting the handlebars. So, you know, I mean, I've chosen to sit a bit further back than possibly some other people, but as you see, there's not really an issue over any of that sort of stuff. This is running on 12-inch wheels, so I think they're 110/80s. The MQI Plus Sport is running on 10-inch wheels, so it is sitting a bit higher. The weight of the bike is about 75 kilos or something, loaded, as in with the batteries, so pretty light. It's also 1.7 meters long, so shorter, you know, again, around the sort of MQI Plus size. You know, might be good for camper vans and things like that. It does have pegs for a second person. As I said, it would be good to have a rack at least, so you could put a top box on it if you were having the second person, so that you could at least give them something to lean against. But maybe they do that, just not in the UK right now. It's got some daytime running lights. The battery is not underneath here. This is just where the controller is and stuff like that. So again, you know, enough space. No real issue over the handlebars, but pretty basic. You probably can't see that in the reflection in that car there, but I've got a simple light, which is just a beam, and then I've got this sort of T section light, and you'll see more of this on the static review. And then I've got my main beam. So at the moment, this is not. This is just running lights essentially. 2 horns, which is quite interesting. It's the first bike I've seen with 2 horns. I'm not sure why they did that, but anyway, you've got no excuse for not getting onto the horn. You know, it's pretty low because I can get both my feet down very easily, and as you can see, it just accelerates away quite nicely. Silent, of course, because it's a hub motor, and that's basically it. So what I'll do is I'll keep going. I'll come back rather when I do a good few miles on this and when the battery light comes on, and we'll see exactly what one battery does. And if it gets over 20 miles, or even if it gets to 25 miles, then this will probably turn out to be the cheapest bike that does 50-mile range, which says something in itself. Alright, so I'll come back when we're nearer that time. Okay, so back on board. As you can see, I've been riding around so long that it's now got dark. But surprisingly, we're at 24 miles, and we're at, it says according to this, half. I don't really believe that. But, and I can assure you, this is only one battery. The other one is not connected under the seat. We've hit 25 miles, and this was at 0 when we started. So, surprisingly, if this, I can't see why this wouldn't get to 27, which would be 54, which is what, and it says 55. So this is the second range test I've done where the range quoted appears to be correct. Normally you have to take it all with a pinch of salt and knock off so many miles. I mean, I haven't been necessarily riding any differently. I've been on, this is a 40-mile road, so I'm flat out. What you will notice is it's now not doing 28, 29. That's a feature of the BMS, I would say. Some of them are more linear in how they use up their energy, whereas some are sort of like falling off a cliff, you know, so they give you full speed until the last minute and then they drop off. But assuming I do get back, this will have done 27 miles, I think, which will be, as it says on the tin. So, I guess we just have to summarise. So what doesn't this bike have? It doesn't have a fancy display. As you can see, it's a bit 1980s, but it tells you what you need to know. It doesn't have a clock. Okay, it doesn't have GPS for tracking, but you could add one. There are many companies that do that, so you could track this bike if it gets stolen and have an app on your phone, just like you would with some of the other bikes. It doesn't have regen, but at this rate, this is going to be the best value for range. £1,700 for a 50-mile range bike, and it's a real 50 miles. There isn't anything that comes close to that. The M Plus Sport won't do 50 miles. And even though currently it's 1760, when it goes back up, it will be 300 odd pounds more than this. So, I mean, you know, if it doesn't have regen, but it does 50 miles anyway, and regen on a 40-mile bike will get you 2 more miles. It's not, you know, going to make much difference, is it, regen? So, yeah, it doesn't have regen. It doesn't have an app. It doesn't have disc brakes front and back. It has disc at the front, drum at the back. There's not a choice of colour. It is black or black. but for the range, for £1,700, including 2 batteries. First battery warning just came up. Okay, interesting. £1,700 while being on the grant, so you get the 3-year warranty. Okay, it doesn't have Panasonic batteries. It has a Chinese make, but I guess Yadea would have tested all that out before they chose it. And lithium-ion batteries are not exactly new technology. It doesn't have a Bosch motor. It has someone else's motor. Wuxi is the brand that they have. Again, these motors are not complicated. They literally take power from the battery, feed it through the controller, and shove it straight into the motor, which just spins. There's not a lot of moving parts in a hub motor. Okay, so it doesn't have a known brand. As you can see, it is beginning to struggle on the speed, but again, that isn't unique to this bike. Lots of bikes do that. Okay, so it does have a little bit of storage under the seat for the charger, and a few other bits and bobs. I've actually got a repair kit and a disc lock under there, stuff that you would struggle to get on other bikes. It has space for 2. Okay, it doesn't have a flat seat, but it still has space for 2. It doesn't look like there's a rack, so you're into rucksacks. But again, for the money, for a bike that's going to do over 50 miles, and that's a real over 50 miles, as you can see, it's pretty good. Okay, charging time is going to be a bit slow because it's only got a 4-amp charger. It is going to drop off from its 28 miles an hour to what looks like it's now struggling a bit. This is in mode 2. As you can see, the battery light has now come on. If I get to 27.5 miles, which I probably haven't got enough distance to do unless I keep going around the block, it will do exactly what they quote, 55 miles. Find me another bike that does a real 55 miles for under £2,000. I don't think there is one. Not with, on the grant, with the warranty. Okay, so if you can live without an app, which you could add, if you can live without disc brakes at the back, I'm not sure that's a big issue. If you can live without a choice of colour, it does have an alarm anyway as well, which does work, and it has got the locking wheel mechanism when it does go off, so you cannot easily move it. I would say this is a good bike for the range for what you are going to get, especially in London, where most of the roads are 20 miles an hour only. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. I will probably put in the notes how far it got, but at this rate it is going to do probably 29-30 miles on one battery, which is actually the first time it's done more than what they say. So yeah, surprised. As you can see, I have 2 chunks flashing. I think the next hill that I get to will be quite telling. And as you can see, I'm down to 20 miles an hour flat out, but I'm in a 20 mile zone, so it doesn't really matter. Alright, so I hope you found that useful. I found it quite interesting. Obviously you're welcome to test ride this. It does look like, from what Lexmoto are saying, or showing on their website, that the Impulse has gone, so this is their entry level bike. This is, if you want to get into it, they're as low as you can get. As you can see, I'm literally dying now. 27 miles, 18 miles an hour max. in actual fact, as that is getting now a bit dangerous, I'm going to call it that, because it's not really usable. Okay, so there we go, 27 miles. Some of it was flat out, a lot of it was flat out in fact, and on one battery. So I think we'll call it there. I hope you found it useful. Obviously, any questions, then please feel free to contact us. If you want a test ride this or any of the other bikes that we've got, then just please feel free to send an email to hello@green-mopeds.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will be doing a static review of this bike at some point, just to show you a bit more about it. And thanks very much.